Hey everybody, Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity, and I've got a very fun and interesting interview for you this time around. It is with Mattei, and he is an Italian artist that has recorded now two albums, and he's got some great people behind him, including Tony Levin, which you may remember we chatted with him a few months ago, one of the best bass players you'll come across in this business. And Marco has a new album out called Age of Fragility. And we talked about this album. This is one of those kind of albums where I don't know how you feel about when you listen to records. Some records you can just listen to in the background and they're just great background music. Other music can be very intense and you'll want to listen to every little note and syllable of it in order to get the whole picture. This album is both. You can very much enjoy it in the background if you want, but this album also commands attention to where you want to hear and get every nuance of the lyrics, which are very intense. The sound, the melodies, the vibe you get from the vibe is consistent, but there's a lot of variety in the sound, from rock to very much prog type of sound and everything in between. So I think you're really going to want this album for your personal collection. This interview's fun. He's Italian, so get your Italian ears on and listen to his accent, which is very lovely. I think you women will probably swoon over him. Good looking guy too. So, hey, I don't know if he's married, but you'll definitely enjoy this interview. So while you're at it, I almost got ahead of myself there. While you're at it, please hit like and please subscribe. It won't cost you a thing, but as I always say, it helps us out tremendously. So without any further ado, here is my first of what I hope are many more interviews to come with Marco Mattei from Italy. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care.
Now,
Okay, how's that?
that's
My
better.
microphone was moved to the side and I didn't realize it, so that might be better too. So,
You very well.
okay, good deal. Let's see. If I remember correctly, Steve told me you would be calling in from Italy. Is that correct?
That's right.
Where at in Italy?
I am 8 minutes walk from the Colosseum.
Ah, wow. Very cool.
Yeah,
I've,
very
I've,
central
I've,
of Rome.
I've not been to Rome. I've only been to Europe one time. That was in Switzerland. This is in 1989.
Oh,
And I did get into Italy, but it was up in the Alps, up in,
yeah.
if I remember right, I think it's pronounced Aosta. Is that correct?
Oh, oh,
Alsta. Okay. So yeah, I had lunch there, ate spaghetti in Alsta. So, so
but I realized, I was watching your interview with Andy Timmons, right?
with
And I
who?
realized Andy Timmons,
Oh, Andy. Yes, yes.
and I realized one thing that the three of us have in common
What's that?
is that we all lived in McKinney, Texas.
You lived in McKinney?
For 10 years almost, yes.
When was that?
Well, I moved back to Italy in 2023, so 2 years ago. I was there from 2014 to 2023.
Well, I moved here to East Tennessee in 2013. No. Gosh, I've been here 11 years, so whatever that is. I didn't
Yeah,
sleep well
well,
last night, so I
yeah,
moved here almost 11 and a half
you're
years
right
ago.
before I moved in. Yeah, and it's crazy. Of course I went to Guitar Sanctuary, and I've seen a lot of concerts from Andy. But the funny thing is that I used to meet him. I met him a few times at Whole Foods in what's called that in Fairview.
Yeah. Well, how it is small world after all, right?
Funny,
So,
right? You go and
man,
interview an Italian guy, and you figure out that you live in the same place in the U.S.
we may have passed each other at some point. Who knows? So
Who
it's
knows? Who knows?
well, how are things there in Italy? Is weather good, healthy, and everything?
Spring is coming. Rome is beautiful. This time of the year, I cannot complain.
Well, good deal. Good deal.
I
Well,
mean, there's a lot of things that I miss from the U.S. Or I should say Texas actually, but weather is not one of them. Weather is
yeah,
one of
I don't miss it either. I'm up in the Smoky Mountains now, so
them.
I'm up here where it's nice and green. It gets hot, but not like Texas. But when you were in McKinney, did you ever meet Quentin Hope?
No,
No.
I don't know who is.
He's a great guitar player. In fact, I met him through Andy, and
Oh,
Quentin is who does my. I use one of his songs for my intro and outro on all my interviews. So
ah,
I just didn't know if you had met him before or not.
no,
But well,
no,
interesting.
no.
Well, I am so glad that Steve Karras has put us together. I love your album, and it's one of those albums, in my opinion, that you can't listen to, at least not the first couple times. You can't listen to it passively
Mm.
because there's so much there, musically and lyrically. And I like those kind of albums because I don't, you know, anybody can listen to elevator music, right? So your album is one that has to be actively listened to fully appreciate it. Yes, you can listen to it passively, but it's a very intense album. And I, tell me about it. What's behind the lyrics and the compositions of the songs on this album?
Yeah, no, first of all, thanks for your feedback, and I'm glad to hear that the um, the impression that the album gives is that it has to be listened to. How do you say actively, right? Because
Hmm.
that's the intent. That's the intent. The intent is to create a multi-layered album from a lot of different perspectives, as you mentioned, lyrically and musically. And when it comes to music, in terms of sounds, arrangements, mixing, so a lot of different aspects. From lyrics perspective, the idea of the album came about 4 years ago after I did my first album. And I was just thinking, okay, reflecting on what I could write about. And that was, the time right after COVID, and everything started to look more fragile to me. Some things that we gave for granted, especially in the Western world, were not so much for granted,
Hmm.
and that also had some implication on the first on a interpersonal level. Like when I grew up, you didn't hear about kids with anxiety or depression, right? And but I think the pressure of this era, um, makes us all feel more fragile, and things are more fragile, and we feel it more because we're not used to it anymore. So,
Hmm.
so that was kind of the idea, and from that idea, I started looking at okay, what could be different stories, different aspects, and I went into some more personal stories, some stories that I came through, reading, and some other stories that I know of. And so I created this concept, this collage of stories of people dealing with different fragilities of our times, um, and collected them. And that also triggered then some thoughts about how the music should reflect those themes, basically. So that's how the idea came about.
Is I know it's different with a lot of different songwriters, and I don't know how it is with you, but for me, when I write, especially something that is very close to the heart, to me that can be a very vulnerable thing to do. And and for me, I'm not a songwriter, I'm not a musician, so for me to share something of a personal level in my writing, to me, it can be you can feel very exposed. And if it's something where you're very sensitive, you can feel it's almost like reliving that emotion again. How is that for you? Do you feel, especially when you're performing these songs where a lot of people are going to be hearing it, where is, does that, does that make you more nervous in performing when they're such personal and such intense songs?
I mean, in a way, um, relieving some of these feelings may be scary and also quite emotional, as you mentioned. On the other hand, it's very difficult, even with the closest friends and family, to talk about some things that are so intimate, right?
Hmm.
And it may sound like a paradox, but uh, songs are a media, and music is a media, and words in my songs are not as explicit. So it's a way, it's almost therapeutical, to talk about certain things and without being too explicit, but getting the feeling that you're communicating and you're sharing. Um, and I think, if things go as, you know, I'd like to, then people would connect on an emotional level, not knowing the details, not knowing exactly what it is about, but the objective here, the idea, the thing that would make me feel that I've done a good job is if
Hmm.
people connected emotionally to those songs, to those lyrics, and to the way the music delivers those feelings.
Hmm.
So it's at the same time it's weird because it's super personal, but it's not split. So that's kind of what protects me from doing this, right?
Understood. Understood.
Makes sense at all.
When you started recording this album, how long did it take you to record from once you started recording to the end? Was it all at one time, or did you do it off and on over a period of time, or how did that work for you?
Yeah. So the way I generally work is that I prepare demos of the songs that are very detailed. So I play all the instruments. I think of all the arrangements. I get really into the detail. I'm not the kind of person that goes in the studio with some high level idea. I like to have in mind exactly how it's gonna sound, and I like to record it to hear what it actually sounds, right? So it took me about 3 years to write the songs and to do this kind of demos. And then I wanted to go to a studio to record them, and I did that with a very close friend of mine. His name is William Galiotto. He plays keyboards, an exceptional musician. We grew up together. He plays with some major bands here in Italy, and he liked the songs, and he said, "Okay, let's do this, right?" And in my previous album, I had Jerry Marora playing on a couple of songs, and
Hmm.
that was great. But we never met in person. We worked remotely, right? That was exactly during the COVID time, so everybody was working, just exchanging tracks. And so I thought it would be great to actually go to a studio there with Jerry because he's amazing, of course, but he has the kind of groove that I was looking for to create those atmospheres, right? So I contacted him. He was available. So we booked in June of 24. We booked 1 week at his studio in Woodstock, New York. The
Ah,
studio is called Dreamland. And he said, and the idea is, okay, let's record the core band, guitars, bass, drums, and keyboards. And he said, so you're coming with a keyboardist, you're playing guitar, you have a bass player. I said, well, no. Is there anybody? I mean, I know Woodstock is a place where there's a lot of musicians. Anybody you would recommend? And he said, let me check if Tony Levin is available that week. And Tony as well had contributed to my previous album, same way, remotely, always through Jerry, right? And I was super lucky because he was in between tour, and so he was available that week. So we met that 1 week, which was just amazing in this studio, and we recorded all the songs as a band. And then after that, I spent a few more months doing some overdubs, guitars, and other instruments. Like I like play bouzouki as well, mandolin, other stringed instruments, and then of course vocals. I had different singers coming in and recording. Some of them actually recorded their tracks remotely and sent them to me. So it took another about 3 months to complete the album. And then I spent about 6 months mixing and mastering it. And that's one thing that I love to do. So I did it myself. I'm very passionate about the sound. I have a very clear vision about how it should sound. So I enjoy it. So I did it myself. So it took from June. I finished maybe in January, February, and then it's gonna be published in May. So yeah,
very good.
that was the process.
Tony's a great guy. I interviewed him a while back, and he is, not only is he a great bassist, but he's a great human being too. And we know some of the same people and all that. But he was a fun interview. His last album was a very good one. I don't know if you heard it, but
Yeah, I did, and actually we were honored. He was finishing it, and he played a couple of tracks while we were in the studios. I don't remember the title of the one where he uh, it's a choir and he quotes all the drummers' names. That was just hilarious and amazing at the same time. So yes, great, absolutely great guy, of course, and I love the album.
yeah, it's very good, very good, very intelligent man too, very intelligent. Were there any surprises for you when you went in, started working on this album? You had your other album before, and so, like you said, that was a distributed or remotely recorded type of album. So you had one set of experiences there, but in this new album, were there any surprises that you were not anticipating?
Well, I try to maximize the time in the studio. So I prepared the session, very, very carefully. But still, when you're in the studio, um, you're not prepared for some things. Like for me, working in the studio with such a, I don't know, this kind of guys, they are reference musicians for all the community, the musicians community. So I didn't expect how emotional it would be for me. That was a little bit of surprise, and also managing. I mean, it's a weird situation because they're playing your stuff, so they expect you to tell them what they should play, right? And I'm like, guys, you're such great musicians, and you have some reference. So, but sometimes I had to. take decisions very quickly, and that was something challenging, and I didn't expect to that extent. But yeah, it played out very well. I'm very happy, and more than happy, I'm very grateful for that collaboration. And it was not only an amazing experience, but also a big learning for me.
Did you bring anything from the first album to this second album?
In terms of what do you
Well,
mean?
songs and what you learned from the first album. What what kind of experiences did you bring with you to put to work on this new album?
Yeah, I mean, all the songs were composed after the first album was closed, so I didn't bring any song from there because it was all based on this concept. I had some songs, but I didn't bring them into this. In terms of experience, for sure. My first album was um, very explorative. It's a lot of different genre. It's very diverse, and that's good and bad. I didn't realize how diverse my music could be,
Hmm.
and so that realization, I brought it into this new one, and I tried to do something that was a lot more consistent. I picked one kind of musical approach, so to say, or mood, whatever you want to call it, that comes from two or three of those songs, and I expanded that to this new album in a quite focused way. So to me, this is a very consistent album, and I'm very curious about the feedback that who's gonna listen to it will have. It may be it may sound a lot more consistent to me, but maybe people will still feel it's quite diverse. I don't know. I'm very curious about that.
Well, my take on it was that there's, on one hand, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can explain this quickly or correctly or not, but sometimes you can have this thread musically, a certain sound, a certain vibe, a certain energy, but there's different kinds of songs through there. There's a variety of sound. So everything doesn't sound the same. And that's how your album is. There's a lot of variety, but yet I could tell that that was you, that was Tony, that was Jerry, there was a sameness of energy, but a variety of sound. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And I
Um,
think that's a strength to your album because I've listened to a lot of albums, obviously, and sometimes it just sounds like variations of the same song. And while they're great, it's a great song. That's it. It's a great song. There needs to be a lot of other songs that are also great on there. And that's what I like about your album, Marco, is that there's a continuity of energy and feel and vibe, but a variety of sound, and I love it.
so going back to the initial point you had about the active listening, right? One of the concepts that I try to uh, put at work into this album is that, to me, music has all these different elements. You got the harmony, you got the melody, you got the arrangement, the sounds, the rhythm. Uh, you got the lyrics. You got these five, six elements. And when I listen to a lot of music that is available today, I find it boring because everything, each of these aspects is something that you already heard. It's a reference, it's a cliche in a way. It's in the same harmony as many other songs you've heard, and so on. There's also a lot of music, like Trey Gunn has this label, 70 Media, that I'm working with. They do some amazing things, but to me, some of that music is so experimental that I love it, but then after a while I get a little bit tired because it's so far. It requires such an active listening that after a while I cannot, I struggle a little bit in listening to it multiple times, and it requires a real active listening. So the concept I try to bring this in is to keep it interesting, but also have some references to something that is more in our comfort zone. And I did it kind of almost by design for each song, saying, okay, I want to have like a very straight beat, which is, something that you feel familiar with, but I want to use an unfamiliar harmony. Or I want to use a familiar harmony, but some weird lyrics, or more straightforward lyrics. But here I want to have a melody that is not expected, or a structure of the song that is not expected. You wouldn't expect here to be a chorus or a verse, but there's gonna be one. So I try to work on keeping this thing interesting by changing using some of these elements in a less familiar way and balancing them with something more familiar. And I think
That's,
that creates that. My aim was creating that active listening, but not too tiring. Right? So
yeah.
that was the idea behind it musically.
I think you're very successful in that, Marco, and that's why I was saying, in the beginning of our chat that, it's an album that to get the full benefit, you got to listen to actively, but you can also enjoy just letting it play while you're working or relaxing or whatever. It accomplishes both very, very well. Is there is there a song, because you have a lot of variety in there? Is there, I know this may be a hard question to answer, and I always ask artists this, but is there a song that you would point to as a calling card? And because there's going to be a lot of people that have not heard of you before that are going to want to check out your album. Is there a song you would point to and say, hey, if you like this particular song, you're going to like the rest of the record?
That's a very hard question. To me, each song has a meaning in the album. So I see this album very much as a whole, not
Right.
as a collection of songs. So that's why it's particularly difficult to answer that question. There's a song that is called "You Don't Deserve It," which is probably the most energetic or closest to rock kind of song,
Mm-hmm.
which I think people may like. And then there's, for example, the single that it's already out called "Just Tired." It's
Mm-hmm.
a very long song. The album it's 7 minutes or something, and the album is going to even have an extended version of 11 minutes. Um, and it's a song that is very groovy, very much in this kind of ethnic, um, groovy style. Um, I guess people will kind of hear back some Peter Gabriel kind of echoes into that. But it's also very long and kind of meditative music. So I think those are kind of the two extremes in the album, and
Mm-hmm.
everything else is kind of in between. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of saying, "Hey, this is like everything else," I think I'm pointing out that two extremes, and everything is gonna be kind of in the middle, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, so what are your plans? The album comes out in May next month. We're recording in April for those that listen to this somewhere down the road. What are your plans once the album come out? Are you going to do any touring or in support of this? Where are you going to be touring if you are? That kind of thing.
Yeah. So this was a little bit of strange thing because I started writing the album when I lived still in the U.S. And then I moved back to Italy, and I was so focused on finishing the album that I didn't quite fully prepare, what am I gonna do after that? I'm trying to put together a band to play live, but I don't have I haven't finalized that yet. I hope, I can put something together and do some dates. Meanwhile, what I'm gonna do is a few kind of presentations of the album in small venues like music labs and in what do you call libraries or cultural associations. For example, on the 16th, the day the album is going to come out, we're going to do a presentation in my own town, which is called Civitavecchia. They have a music festival. So we're going to play a couple of songs. We're going to do some interview. And then, because also Duilio lives there, we're probably going to do a very small acoustic set with a couple of songs, and we may repeat that in a couple more. But the idea is also to put together a band, but the plans are not fully defined yet. So.
I see. Well, I know it should be too early for me to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are you writing for your next album yet?
It's the answer is yes.
Good.
And it's very weird feeling because I worked on this project for 4 years, and so for 4 years I had my mind set on that exclusively, right? So everything I'm doing artistically is for this project. And then when the record is done, yes, of course there's promotion and I'm trying to put together a band and so on. But it's kind of a vacuum. You're like, okay, what am I doing now? I mean, and so yeah, I already have some ideas, and I started already writing for follow up. I know what it's gonna be. It's gonna be a couple of songs, an EP, an album. I have no idea at the moment, but yes, I've already started writing something.
Well, good, good, because I love what I'm hearing so far, and I hope you continue to write and continue to record, and then when you come out with something, I want us to talk again like we're doing here. So it's always good to be able to help promote good work like yours. If you could, this will be my last question here, but if you could do anything recording wise, work with anybody you could, that kind of thing, what kind of project would you like to record ultimately? Maybe not the next album, but somewhere down the road. What kind of project would you like to do, and who would you like to work with on that?
This is a mind blowing question. So many artists that are awesome and I would love to work with. Um, I like the whole. Of course, my background is from the prog scene, so I love all these prog music artists. So there are great singers that would be fantastic to have in the album. Um, but I also very much appreciate and I see it as a kind of modern prog music, things like Radiohead or Bon Iver or James Blake, I don't know, Alt J. Those are, more recent bands, not new bands, but more recent bands compared to the, traditional prog
Yeah.
scene that that in my mind, bring that concept that was the basis of prog of exploration, and would be great to collaborate with any of them. Um, I like to explore, fusion of electronic music into more traditional sounds. So a lot of these bands have taken that direction, which would would be very fascinating for me to follow. and try it.
Well, cool. Well, I hope you get to do that. And when you do, let's talk again too. So, well, Marco, this was a lot of fun. I hope it wasn't painful for you, but I enjoyed the talk. And like I said, I love your album. I'm glad that Steve Karras has introduced us. And like I said, anytime you have something coming out and you need help getting the word out, just let Steve know and we'll get this set up and we'll talk again, okay?
Thank you, Andy. I really appreciate the time, the nice conversation, the beautiful background that you have.
Oh, you're just a little biased.
So thanks again for letting me, and yeah, talk to you next time.
That's right. All right. Take care and be safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.